Welcome, everyone. May we all be happy and well and filled with loving kindness. And may all beings be happy and well and filled with loving kindness. This little verse from Buddhism, I think, is a very good way to start anything, start meditation, start the breath practice, and to finish. It sums things up. We give a good wish to ourselves, first of all. We send a good wish to ourselves, a nurturing wish. That nurturing wish comes from the natural nurturing part of us, which knows what loving kindness is. And then we send out a nurturing wish to all beings, irrespective of who they are or what they are. All beings, may they be happy and well and filled with that same nurturing energy. Good. Okay, the usual things I say when we start. Look after yourself. Don't push yourself in any way. Stop immediately if you're getting dizzy, lightheaded, pins and needles, feeling odd in any way. Stop. Breathe through your nose. Breathe through cupped hands over your nose and mouth. Be your own authority. Be your own authority. Okay. Oh, relaxing the shoulders. Oh. Feeling for a moment that the shoulders are equal. Not trying to make them equal, just feeling that they're equal. No effort, just feeling that they're equal, just entertaining the idea of them being equal. And then we're going to do grounding, awareness, and presence. Be aware of the whole body. Being aware of the whole body. The whole body opens. Sitting solidly in a chair, on the ground, very solid, very grounded, very solid, very grounded. A sense of the whole body all at once. Now be aware, as you're sitting there, of space all around. Be aware of the space in front, the space behind, be aware of the space to your left, the space to your right, above, and below. surrounded by space. And if you can hear any sounds in that space, don't follow the sounds, but be aware of those sounds in space. Aware that that space all around you is the same space that is in you, that's inside your body. The space inside and the space outside are the same space. Space inside and the space outside are the same space. Sitting very solidly on the earth, in space. The grounded we are, the more spacious we become. The more spacious we are, the more grounded we become. Be aware that that space inside, and the space outside, and the space inside your head and outside your head are all the same space. And that space is filled with awareness. That space is filled with awareness. Only awareness filling that space. And all we are aware of is awareness. Awareness is aware of itself. Spacious and grounded. Coming back to the body, very solid. Fully present on the earth. Space all around. Space inside, space outside. The same space. And all of that space filled with awareness. Filled with your awareness. Filled with your awareness. Filled with your awareness. Good. Good. Make sure your shoulders are nice and relaxed. Just imagine that they're equal. No effort. Shoulders are equal and relaxed. My shoulders are equal and relaxed. So today we are talking about hypervigilance and breathing. This term hypervigilance simply means we are too alert in a stressed way. We are too alert in a stressed way. One more time, we are too alert in a stressed way. You'll have heard me say many times, the ideal condition for us as beings, for our nervous systems, is to be relaxed and alert. To be relaxed and alert. We hear often, well, you have to have a certain amount of stress to perform at your optimal level. Yes, if you're an Olympic swimmer, that might be true. But for most of us, that is not true. The best state to be in, to do anything, from having breakfast to public speaking, is to be relaxed and alert. And have that well-being that comes from being very clear and alert and feeling very relaxed and easy in the body. Most chronic health conditions, for one reason or another, create a chronic stressful condition in which the nervous system is too alert. It is too alert and chronically alert. They can't, after a while, relax. So the nervous system gets into a state of chronic, tense, tired. Chronic, tense, tired. Most people are familiar with this condition. I'm chronically tense and tired. And most people are familiar with the fact that if it goes on too long, it becomes a vicious circle. The more tense and tired you are, the less you sleep, the less you can let yourself down during the day, and it just becomes a reinforcing cycle. This is particularly the case, of course, if you're unwell, you're in chronic pain, you have chronic stresses in your life of one sort or another. The most important thing we can do to recover health or to stay well is to deal with hypervigilance, to deal with the chronically overactive nervous system. And we all know the symptoms: chronic anxiety, chronic worry, a brain that can't be still, is constantly thinking, trying, problem solving, anticipating the future, thinking about the past. And a body which is chronically tense and feeling unwell as a result of the constant barrage of alarm signals which the brain is sending down its way. The famous yoga teacher, Pandit Acharya, said, the body can be like a beaten dog. The master is the relentless, overactive mind, and the body becomes like a poor beaten dog, cowed and unwell and frightened by this tyrannical mind which cannot stop. So, the most important thing we can do is deal with chronic hypervigilance, which is the same as chronic anxiety, chronic stress, chronic worry. Well, the first thing I think is to know about this is that hypervigilance, it tends to occur in certain sorts of individual, people who are constitutionally sensitive, and who will always be somewhat anxious and somewhat tense. That's all right. It can be within normal limits. When it gets out of hand, something has to be done. And the first important thing to know is that it is not solved by doing a meditation twice a day or any sort of relaxation procedure twice a day for 20 minutes or whatever. Because the problem with a chronically tense mind, an overactive mind, is that you may have some relaxation in meditation or yoga nidra or whatever it is. You can come out of that 5 minutes later, you can be stressed to the max. The system bounces back into its normal hypervigilant state. So the first thing to know about managing this is we've got to deal with it in a moment by moment kind of way, which means constantly remembering during the day to tune into ourselves, be aware of how we're feeling, and take a short break to address hypervigilance and chronic worry. There are many ways we can do this. The first way is to remember to do it many times during the day. Now, you can have a formal relaxation or meditation period. That's great. But frequent, short periods of getting aware of your state and attempting to correct that state, this is what it's all about. So, the first thing we can do is, if you've got some sort of smartwatch, just get it to remind you every half an hour or so to check in with yourself. Just get it to remind you to check in with yourself. You can get a tactile buzz or an auditory buzz, or whatever suits. When you get the reminder, check in with yourself. If you're sitting, check in what's happening. It's not a big deal. We're not going to make a meal out of it. We're just going to check out where the tension is. We're going to release the shoulders. Always release the shoulders. And first simple thing we can do is do a quick breathing exercise, such as the 4-4 that we do in picking grapes, where we breathe in for 4, then we breathe in for another 4. We just do that sitting down ordinarily with our hands in our laps. So we would just do and slow exhalation. Letting the whole body go. Let's do it 3 times. That's once, twice more. Check ourselves out. Good. It's invaluable to do that as often as you can, when you can remember. And the remembering is the key. As we all know, we can go long stretches during the day when we are completely and utterly asleep. We're completely identified with what we're doing, or we're identified with what's happening in our minds, or whatever it is, and we are deeply, deeply asleep to ourselves. We need to have that wake-up stimulus and to do something to wake us up, the sniffing part, and relax, to get into a more optimal state of relaxed alertness. And of course, look, you can always do the default breath. Just sitting quietly, hands on that, eyes open or closed, breathing through the nose. Return your breath to abdominal breathing. When you stopped and reminded yourself to stop, you may notice that your breath has come up. It's more in the chest than the abdomen. You just sit, relax, and allow the abdominal respiration to be. Let's just do that a moment. Good. When you come back to yourself, and that's what we're talking about, self-remembering is coming back to oneself. Remembering yourself, coming back to yourself. Mindfulness, if you like. Coming back to yourself, I find a much better expression of what this is. We're coming back to ourselves. When you come back to yourself and your breathing drops down into the abdominal area in a relaxed, low and slow way, you feel naturally that, the breath going down to that part of my body is going down to the natural, physical center of my body. I'm coming back to the natural, physical center of gravity of my body. Good. The other thing we can do briefly is to do the alternate nostril. Very, very good. If we've been overthinking, tense, worrying, we've probably been overusing the left side of the brain, thinking, verbal thinking, that is. Alternate nostril, we're balancing things back. Balancing back. Let's do a minute of alternate nostril breathing. Either doing the blocking of the nostrils with the thumb and ring finger, or just imagining the air coming up one side, going down the other, coming up that other side, back to where it started. Feeling the cool of the air on the side that you're imagining the air coming in. Feeling the cooling of the air. Let's do that for a minute. Good. Or we can do the balanced breath for a minute. So 6 in, 6 out, or whatever ratio suits you, as long generally as it's the same count in and the same count out. So let's do 6 in and 6 out. Breathing mainly, we can, into the diaphragm, into the abdomen. So I'll count for us. Starting now. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and finish. Relax the shoulders. The shoulders are relaxed and equal. Relaxed and equal. Feel the whole body sitting in a chair, solid, on the earth. Feel the whole body all at once, solid, on the earth. Feel that you as that body are sitting in the midst of space all around. And that space is the same outside as it is inside. That space is filled with your awareness. Your awareness. Filled with your awareness. Good. You can go through that sequence very quickly, getting the whole body grounded, feeling your body in space, feeling that the space inside and outside are the same space, feeling that space is filled with awareness, your awareness. Your awareness is that space. That space is your awareness. Good. So, a few more words about hypervigilance a moment. The thing about hypervigilance, the most important thing about it is, of course, that it disrupts the natural balance of your body and the natural balance of your mind. The body, under normal circumstances, should be cycling between doing a bit, resting a bit, doing a bit, resting a bit, doing a bit, resting a bit. The so-called ultradian cycles, which we've talked about. The little rest periods that one would normally have during the day of 10 to 15 minutes every hour and a half or 2 hours or so are invaluable in rebalancing the brain and body, keeping stress hormone levels down. You all know that the stress hormone, cortisol in particular, does a lot of damage. And if the cortisol is on all the time, the cortisol switch, then that is not good for your body or your brain. When you're chronically stressed and hypervigilant, you don't get those ultradian breaks. The central nervous system kind of rides over them. So you lose out on an important regenerative period that is occurring regularly through the day. I remember many years ago hearing, I was at a seminar with a biofeedback teacher, practitioner, who was talking about Air Force pilots, Top Guns, and the EEG findings, their brainwave findings on these individuals. These individuals were rather unusual in the sense that their brains were taking micro breaks, tiny periods of time where there was a little burst of alpha waves, which allowed the brain, as it were, to take a mini break, even though they were in an environment where they had to be hypervigilant and prepared to react with a great speed and coordination. So taking mini breaks, super important. The other very important thing about hypervigilance is that it narrows attention. When we are stressed, our attention becomes a very narrow beam. Good example of this is when we've lost something, we've lost our keys or our glasses or whatever it is, and we furiously go around looking for these things throughout the house or whatever. And we don't find them until we stop, relax, and just allow ourselves to remember when we last had our keys or our glasses. And then often it just pops in. That narrow focus, that hypervigilant focus, is not a way to solve problems. It's not a way to know what's going on in your life or even immediately around you. And the analogy that's used often is of going into a huge darkened room. Say you've got a little pen light with you, which emits a very narrow beam. So you're shining this pen light all over the place. After a while, you would build up a picture from all the tiny snapshots that you were getting from pointing your little pen light all over the place. But it's very effortful to build up that picture. In contrast, if you brought a lamp, sort of Florence Nightingale lamp in with you, which was emitting light in all directions, you'd immediately get the layout of the room. You wouldn't see anything in enormous detail. If you wanted enormous detail, you'd get out your pen light and shine it, and then you get the detail. The big picture, you need the lamp. You need the relaxed, alert attention. And you can't get that attention when you're stressed. You just can't get it. You can't get the big picture. So you can't solve the important problems. Your body can't take a rest. Your mind can't take a rest. Nothing gets sorted out. Frequently returning to a relaxed state, just for brief periods during the day, some of which we hope will coincide with an natural ultradian break. This is an inestimable value. Okay. Another thing you can do just for a minute is do some ohms. Do some ohms. And no strain. Just do them in a relaxed way, as relaxed as you can. So if you were just breathing in for 3 and doing ah for 3, ooh for 3, and for 3, that would be fine. As long as you're just doing the ohms, takes your attention away from your mind, and you are expressing. You are expressing. Very good to express in a coherent, harmonious way. Okay, let's do 9 ohms. We're doing 4 in and 4 ah and and Use a different ratio. If that suits you, look after yourself. Breathing in. Good. Sit quietly. Check yourself out. Just do a couple of arms, 2 or 3 arms. 3 is better than 2. That mini break. Then check yourself out, getting the whole body solid on the earth, in space, feeling your awareness filling all of space. Good. You can hum. Just hum for a minute. Don't worry about the timing or anything. Just hum. Just hum. Now, if you're in a situation where you can't do anything very specific, maybe you're in a social situation, and you can't, as it were, formally do any of these practices, but you could just do them with what is possible at the moment. One simple thing is just become spacious. Say you're at a meeting, everyone's sitting around the table. Just become spacious. Feel your body, the whole body, in space. With your awareness, filling that space. When you do that, your focus opens and you become the lamp in the room. You're not focusing on anything in particular. You don't need to be focusing all the time. Focus often doesn't improve our comprehension, doesn't improve very much. It's a very limited use. We hypothesize that if you're an indigenous person, a hunter-gatherer, a lot of the time you would be in open focus, just moving through your environment, aware of everything at the same time, and then using narrow focus when you're honing in on a plant you want to pick or an animal you want to chase or whatever, or something you want to run away from. Good. Let's do that for 4. Breathing in with the slow exhalation. Just get ourselves back to relax and alert. Breathing in. I'm breathing out through my mouth there. Breathe out through your nose. Whatever feels appropriate, be relaxed and alert. Relaxing the shoulders. Relaxing the shoulders. The shoulders are equal and relaxed. So, one of the great pioneers of dealing with hypervigilance was, of course, Dr. Ainsley Mears, the Melbourne psychiatrist, who wrote many years ago, back in the 60s, I think, originally, maybe the 70s, Relief Without Drugs. His book on basically the relaxation response, or what he called ataraxis. And he had enormous success, of course, with psychological problems and with physical problems of all sorts, from rheumatoid arthritis to cancer. Because when we relax, when we're relaxed and alert in that optimal sweet spot, then everything works better. The autonomic nervous system works better. It's back in balance. Therefore, the immune system works better. And the endocrine system works better. And the gut works better. And the heart works better. And breathing is better. Everything is better. It's the pearl of great price, the holy grail of health, to be relaxed. And interestingly, I used to go along and see Dr. Mears in the 80s to learn what he was doing, and for myself as well. And some of his patients were doing his ataraxis practice for up to 4 hours a day, more, up to 4 hours a day. That kind of gives an idea of what is required. Sometimes to bring the hypervigilance down. If you can't do that, there are other things to do, of course. Having a massage is a wonderful way to bring hypervigilance down, to calm the nervous system. A wonderful way. And there's a simple reason for it, which is that the nervous system and the skin come from the same embryonic tissue, the ectoderm. They've come from the same embryonic tissue. They kind of are related to one another. And the royal road to the nervous system is through the skin. And of course, the skin responds very closely to often to what's going on in the brain. So, yes, massage. And if we could have a massage for 1 hour every day of our lives, we would be unfailingly healthy. This is what cultures like the Hawaiian culture and Balinese culture, of course, I've understood many, many years, as has Ayurvedic medicine, Hindu medicine, having a massage. Of course, it may not be possible. Who can have a massage every day of their lives, or even once a week? But we do not despair. When we're stressed, we stimulate our skin. we get a bit of sesame oil and we rub it in. Rub it into our hands, rub it into our arms, rub it into our legs. Anywhere that's sore, we give ourselves that healing touch. It doesn't have to be a bit of sesame oil. It can be anything. It can be oil-free. So I find it very helpful to remember that the skin and the nervous system are connected in a very deep and intimate way.
Excuse me, Paul.
Lindy.
Is there a particular reason why you choose sesame oil?
Only because it is the oil of choice in Ayurvedic medicine for self-massage.
Okay.
Sesame oil, and that's traditional. I mean, interestingly, however, we now know that sesame oil has a class of compounds in it, the sesame lignans, which are anti-inflammatory. So what was discovered empirically by the Ayurvedic physicians, we can verify scientifically, because we're all doubting Thomas's now. It has to be verified by a neuroscientist, even if it's sesame oil. Now we've got verification that, oh gosh, those Ayurvedic rishis, they actually knew what they were talking about.
Is there a difference between pure sesame oil and toasted sesame oil?
That is a very good question. I think the best is the organic, pure organic black sesame oil, which has not been toasted.
Okay.
But
So
I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know if you're
Is there a reason why black sesame oil rather than white sesame oil?
I don't know. I think possibly it's got more of the lignans in it, but I don't know.
Okay.
I find the organic black sesame oil a very delightful substance to use. So that's just my experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Thank you. So the other thing, of course, that we do when we're coming back to ourselves, we do a breathing practice. You can do other things. But we also, very importantly, need to talk to ourselves. The most important thing that we can do to promote relaxation and calm is to talk to ourselves in a friendly, nurturing way, to be a friend to ourselves. Everybody has a nurturing part of the brain. That part of the brain knows how to be nurturing. It knows how to look after a child. It knows how to speak to a child. It knows how to look after an animal, speak to an animal, reassure an animal. It knows. It's inborn. A few people don't have it. A small number of people, proportion of the population, do not have it. The majority of us have it in greater or lesser measure. Women may have it more than men. Controversial, won't say anything more about that. But we have the capacity to talk to ourselves in a nurturing way. And people who are better at managing their stress usually have that more nurturing, that more optimistic, that more reassuring self-talk in their repertoire. Now, in behavioral psychology, this has all, of course, been systematized, how to talk to yourself. It's called stress inoculation. Micron Baum's stress inoculation, in which you talk to yourself in a particular way, particularly if a stressful event is coming up. Say, I'm meeting up with someone and I'm anticipating it's going to be stressful. Well, we prepare ourselves. We talk to ourselves in a nurturing way. We say, look, it's going to be okay. You just got to relax. We've done this before. It was okay. Everything will be fine. You just take one thing at a time. That sort of thing. And then when you've met up with this person and it's a bit of a stressful kind of deal going on because there's some conflict between you two, in the conflict, as you're dealing with the situation, as you're in it, you are staying in yourself. We stay in ourselves. Stay in myself. I'm staying in myself. I'm not judging. I'm just breathing. I'm being here, being myself. I'm doing okay. I'll get through this okay. No need to stress myself. It's okay. This isn't a big deal. That kind of thing. And afterwards, when you're de-stressing from the event, you say, okay, that wasn't so bad. I managed it. I did well. You have to reward yourself. I mean, you can go and get an 8-ounce block of chocolate. That's a reward. Before you do, reward yourself with self-nurture. You did well. You managed that. You kept your cool. You were a friend to yourself. Well done. Well done. Always well done. Well done. Well done, everybody who turned up to this seminar this afternoon. It's a beautiful day outside, but you're at this seminar. Well done. You're interested in looking after yourself. You've got an inquiring mind. You want to practice. That's very good. That's very good indeed. Well done. Good on you. Now, one could say a lot about self-talk. Self-talk, optimism, how we look after ourselves in this realm of the mind. But that can wait for another day. Thank you for your patience. You've been very patient. Thank you very much. Very good. Comme ça. Anybody have a query? I'm not in a rush. I'm all good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Paul, again. Can I ask, in regards to back to hypervigilance, many of us here and probably those watching have got a long-term chronic illness, and we've had to deal with so many different symptoms and so many weird things that we're confronted with, that a lot of times this hypervigilance about our symptoms can come to the fore a lot, especially, especially if they're new symptoms, as in just stuff that comes up that you've not had before because you've dealt with things in the past and you kind of go, okay, and you've talked to yourself and you kind of, I can deal with this, it's fine, and you've probably got some medication to help out and so forth. But if you're confronted with new symptoms or if something becomes really acute, how do you deal with something like that in this I guess it's an awareness of this hypervigilant state. Could our brain be actually affected to cause hypervigilance? So it's got this, we're not doing it, but the symptoms themselves or whatever's causing the symptoms also creates this actual hypervigilance,
Absolutely.
which is actually a symptom.
That's right. And that's the big vicious circle of chronic illness. Not only are you disadvantaged psychosocially, but physically, new things are always coming up, which cause alarm. And dealing with that alarm obviously can be hard, but it's essential that we try and hose ourselves down before again we get into a vicious circle, and it takes us away from ourselves. And how we talk to ourselves about our symptoms, especially new ones, and how we talk to ourselves about all the other stresses we have in our lives, well, that's what it's all about. And I don't underestimate the challenge that that poses, especially as chronic stress tends to knock down the nurturing part of the brain. You can nurture best when you're relaxed. The baby goes to sleep when the mother is rocking it in her arms, and she's relaxed and the baby's relaxed, and it's a virtuous circle. If mom is stressed, the baby won't sleep. That gets mom more stressed, then the baby won't sleep even more. So, yeah, we have to be aware of the many vicious circles that we get into.
Yeah.
And this brings us into the whole realm of how do we let go of things? How do we surrender things? How do we overcome our immediate desire to get control of a symptom or a situation and just let it flow?
Yeah, it's a real catch-22 to be in this balance with yourself of listening to your body, understanding your condition and the symptoms and the waxing and waning of those symptoms, which often come for everybody. And many of us go through really acute stages and then we settle back down as well. And most of us do not want to end up in hospital or actually go to the hospital because our conditions are rarely treated well in a hospital situation, because they do normal tests and they come back normal. They say there's nothing wrong, and almost it's another trauma that you put on yourself as well. So I guess it's simply a lived experience of knowing what you've got to become aware of. I'll give one example, is that for months I kept on having this real bad shoulder pain and put it down to fibromyalgia or just the usual pain. But 6 months later, you eventually go and have a scan, and lo and behold, you find you've got a tear in the shoulder. So you've got to be aware of things that are really abnormal and way above your own condition. And that's a real challenge for many people. How do you know that?
Well, I think you said it there. One of the best cognitive approaches is the old "this too will pass," and that's one's default position. This is probably nothing; it will pass. But if it doesn't pass, and well, one has to set an arbitrary time limit on that. If it doesn't pass, go and see someone. But the majority of things pass. And this is the so-called law of regression to the mean. Things improve. When things are good, sooner or later they won't be so good. And when things are bad, sooner or later they won't be so bad. They'll return to a mean. And this is the way doctors have made their money through the centuries, knowing that the majority of complaints just get better by themselves. the doctor, prescribes some pink water solution, and says, look, go forth and multiply, and the condition will generally get better. So, yes, go forth and multiply is the watchword for so many what are called MUTs, medically unexplained physical symptoms. Up to 50% of people who go to the doctor have medically unexplained physical symptoms. And they are reassured those symptoms will generally get better. The ones that don't get better will be ones where there was actually something going on, which wasn't obvious at the start. So this too shall pass. I think is one approach, but it's challenging.
Yeah.
It's challenging when you're chronically unwell.
And do you think that because you enter into an acute stage, you've got all of these new symptoms that come to light with you, increased pain, which is beyond your normal pain level, or just increased debilitating fatigue where you just cannot get out of bed for a week or so.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that whatever's going underneath, which could be infections, there could be an autoimmune condition flare up, there could be toxins or something like that, which you haven't got a handle on, do you think that also affects the brain in a physical way, that it heightens this fear response, and it's so you've got this danger response reacting in the brain? In fact, they've done scans of people whereby a certain part of the brain is your unwellness center, which seems to be highlighted in a lot of people with chronic fatigue syndrome, and now they're doing it long COVID. And it's just this really small part of the brain which they've noticed is not highlighted in healthy people. And it's a weird part of the brain, I can't remember which part, but it's highlighted in unhealthy people, and they've called it the unwellness center. So you just feel unwell all the time. And then you're creating this fear response. So I guess learning the breath work, understanding that that's probably being created is this unnatural and unrealistic fear response, that you kind of become aware that that's probably what's happening. I don't have cancer. I don't have anything really serious. I can't be worried. It's usually 3 a.m. in the morning, that you learn this breath work, learn to calm yourself down through this sort of thing. Is that something that biologically that happens as well?
Well, absolutely. I mean, when you're chronically stressed, the corticotrophin releasing factor, the central brain hormone, which is related to the stress axis, is secreted more in the brain. Corticotrophin releasing factor in the brain is toxic to the brain. And immediately you get slowdown of neuron growth, for example, in the hippocampus. The hippocampus, of course, associated with learning and memory and emotional processing. So, yeah, I mean, it's the activation of the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, with all the hormone spill off in the brain and in the body, and all the consequences of that, produce this vicious circle of continued stress. So it produces a brain which is less able to deal with stress, and it produces a body which is more likely to have a range of physical symptoms which are unexplained.
Yep.
As well as some physical problems which are explained. So, yeah.
So it's a cyclical thing of a biological process can cause an emotional process can cause a biological process. So you need to deal with both often within chronic illness, not one or the other. It's not in your mind, but it is in your brain in some respects.
Absolutely. And I mean, look, like this brings us into this whole thing of our innate capacity to remain well,
Yeah.
versus the challenges we have from outside, which may overwhelm that innate capacity.
Yeah.
So,
I just wanted to bring it up in the case of the hypervigilant state, all
yes.
of that hyper anxiety, overwhelm, the whole concept. All right, lovely. Thank you for that.
And just one more thing, and certain people, the sensitive individuals, sensitive, artistic, empathic individuals, they are more vigilant from birth. The work on babies, Jerome Kagan's work at Harvard many years ago on babies, you can tell as soon as they're born whether they're going to be hypervigilant individuals. You can tell as soon as they're born. And the likelihood that they're going to turn into shy children and socially phobic teenagers, and then depressed young adults. You can tell from day one that they've got a greater chance of following that trajectory because, it's immediately evident that they have a hypervigilant nervous system.
I have a question, if I may.
Go for it.
How does this? I believe this approach helps things like cancer and also things like arthritis. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Yes.
There was I've forgotten the name, and he had a centre in around Melbourne, and he had cancer and he healed himself using this sort of technique.
Ian Gold.
Yeah, that's the one.
Angola.
Yeah, I haven't heard too much because I think there's been a lot of competing approaches recently.
I haven't heard much about Ian Gold for many moons. I don't know what's happened to their centre, whether they're still going or not. But certainly, my understanding was, and I've spoken with Ian Gold at various functions, that yes, relaxation, yoga, etc., were an intrinsic part of that multimodal approach which they took to cancer. But the first person really to do it was Ainsley Mears, all those years ago, back in the 60s and 70s. He used to treat cancer patients and had enormous success, never claiming to cure, but certainly to improve the trajectory of cancer in some individuals enormously. So, the bottom line is if you relax, your immune system perks up. It works better. Everything works better if you relax.
I've got a friend who's an oncologist surgeon, and I think he has started to come around to this sort of approach.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And there were some American pioneers back in the 70s as well, who were using relaxation visualization. So yes, it's got a long, pretty respectable provenance, and it must be an essential part of every treatment, and why it is absolutely wrong for doctors to ever give a cancer patient or any patient with a chronic illness a prognosis, because that immediately puts a person in a mental state of activation and expectation, and often pessimism when they hear that, the average life expectancy for your cancer is such and such.
Yeah, they give them a death sentence, basically.
Yes. Yeah. With witch doctors, we call it pointing the bomb.
Yes.
So yeah, it's completely wrong.
Excellent. Thank you again for today.
Thanks, everyone.